DeBerg is here today to tell us more about SAGE. Let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Dr. DeBerg.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today to talk about a program called SAGE. SAGE is Students for the Advancement of Global Entrepreneurship, and it's a double entendre. You know, some of us know that SAGE is a French word for to be wise. Well, we want to bring this SAGE concept to teenagers because I've argued that most teenagers do not get exposed to the real world of business until they actually get into the real world of business, or unless they happen to major in business at the university. And so, SAGE, as you can see from the title here, bringing the real world to innovative teens via entrepreneurship. So I'm going to stand over here a second and let's see if you can hear me when I do so. Most of us played high school sports, when we were younger. We played football or soccer or volleyball. SAGE is about competition as well, and I'll explain that in a few moments. But another really neat feature of this is every Wednesday night, 20 Chico State student leaders get together and they have a SAGE meeting. These students are mentors and consultants for their assigned teenage SAGE project, right? So tomorrow night we'll get together, the 20 students, and they'll report on which schools they've been mentoring. And we have schools in Sacramento, Silicon Valley, Ohio, Seattle, New York, Cleveland. And most of these meetings take place via Skype. So my students are doing online, real, live consulting to these teenagers around the U.S. And of course, business and civic leaders like you, not the teachers, evaluate the quality of these problem-based learning projects or entrepreneurial ventures. What is our vision? We are a global community of teens and their allies, us adults being allies and university students, sharing a common purpose to make the world better. Sounds like a Kumbaya John Lennon song, doesn't it? Okay. What is our mission? We want to help create the next generation of entrepreneurial leaders whose innovations and social enterprises address the major unmet needs of our global community. Let me give an example of a SAGE team that got first place in the world last year. It was a group of teenagers from Shanghai, and they were all enrolled in the Shanghai Foreign Language Institute. They spoke perfect English. Their project generated $24,000 in revenue, giving them a net income of over $8,000. They created an instrument that is solar powered that will power more than one instrument at a time, like a laptop and a cell phone, in half the time that a normal instrument. And of course, they won the competition and now they're back in China probably getting venture capital for this invention. It was an amazing thing, and these kids were only 15 and 16 years old. Innovation has no boundaries, but we argue, my SAGE students and I, that innovation is much better when you're young, when you don't know what your limitations are. Why teens? In many of the countries we're located, the teenage demographic is the largest demographic in the whole country. And let's take an example. We're not in Syria yet, but over 70% of the Syrian population is under the age of 20. Very similar statistics in other countries, especially in Africa. South Africa being another. We are present in South Africa. In a nutshell, how does this work? If your child wants to start a SAGE program, he needs to enlist two of his friends or her friends. And the friends, one can be the technology officer and the other one can be the advertising officer. But we want these teams to have, one team to have the innovative idea and to recruit two friends to help them pursue that idea. Then, once they've identified the idea, I will match them with Chico State students. And these students then will be their mentors and consultants throughout the year. Then, imagine right now it's April 19. It's a Saturday. And you are on Chico State's campus because you've accepted my invitation to be a judge. You might be assigned to judge the Ken Grossman Katie Gonzer League, who is one of our sponsors. or the Enterprise Rent-A-Car League, or the Umpqua Bank League. Each of our sponsors are honored, and we name a league after them. And we'll put 3 SAGE teams in a league, and you would look at their 10-page annual report, which students must complete. Here's an example of the China one. And you would read this annual report in the first 10 minutes and score it according to 5 criteria. Innovation and creativity, profitability or a believable path toward profitability, sustainability, succession plan, and one other that I won't go into the details there. But you'll get to judge these students, and at the end of the morning, you will select that team that you think should go into the final league. And the final league could very well be sponsored by the Staples Foundation for Learning, or perhaps other sponsors. Wells Fargo has supported us in the past. Target. Several individuals have helped us. Okay? And so the winning team in each of our 2 categories, one is a social enterprise, which their main goal is to solve a social problem with their entrepreneurial venture, or a commercial enterprise where their goal is to make a profit first, but to do so in a socially responsible manner. Now, really, what's the difference? Well, in Chico, computers for classrooms. How many of you have heard of computers for classrooms? Pat Furr? She is a social entrepreneur. Her goal is not to make a lot of money, first and foremost. Her goal is to take computers that are second generation and refurbish them, install software to make them very affordable to schools who may not have that technology. Okay? Pat Furr is a social entrepreneur. Let's compare that with Ken Grossman and his wife Katie Gonzer. They are commercial entrepreneurs, but they are very well recognized for recycling, reusing, and rethinking how businesses should be run so that they take this cradle-to-grave mentality. So, high school students, teenagers can start either a social enterprise or a commercial enterprise, and they will put into a league. And I described that. What is the difference there? Where is SAGE? We're in 20 countries right now. We are active in 15 countries. Okay? And where are we going to be? Well, the winning 2 teams in Chico on April 19 will advance to our national competition, which will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on May 24th and 25th. Once again, you are invited to judge. Okay? If the top 2 teams in the U.S., if one or both of them are from the Chico area, they will then travel to Moscow, Russia in August, because our World Cup event this year takes place in Moscow. Each tournament runs identically. We have a regional tournament where the judges are people like you. The top teams are identified, and then they advance to the next round. And the next round goes from regional to national to global. What kinds of businesses? Well, do you remember the sponsors I just mentioned? I've got a list, and at the end of my presentation, I was going to recognize some people who. An example, the one I just had there was a team from the Philippines 2 years ago that would take palm fronds, and they would extract this cork-like substance from the middle of the green frond, and they would use this now as kind of a cement-like substance that would be used as a replacement for concrete. Okay, and this would be mixed with other ingredients, and it was wonderful for non-load partitions, like to keep the animals within the confines of a local area. It was a wonderful, wonderful project, and of course the high school students were from a agricultural technical college. Our team from Nigeria last year has a program where they convert waste methane into biogas. Here's a team from Nigeria that created a board game about how to manage cash. Now, the next few photos come from my trip that I made a year and a half ago to Nigeria to visit some of the schools. And when I arrived, the children there, these are SAGE students. They were all in uniform, and they welcomed me with a song. And of course, they had a huge banner talking about how great they are. And of course, their name is D Great Dynamites team. Their mission to groom a generation that will attain academic, social, and of course, they didn't misspell entrepreneurial. The way they spell entrepreneurial is E-N-T-E-R. They've adapted the English version of entrepreneur. When I was there, they showed me their trophy room, and they were so proud to show me their winnings. And by the way, some of these awards, actually all the awards, $10,000, are sponsored by the Ken Grossman family. That's one of our main sponsors, by the way. And then, because they've done so well in Sage, the First Lady of the country donated a school bus to them. And of course, they emblazoned her name on the side, advertising. As a result of how well they performed, the regional government provided them money to build a new school. Through their projects and their profits, they were able to build 2 new wells and water towers. And here's my favorite. They built this outhouse. And of course, I had to stand next to it because they emblazoned their name right on that outhouse, and I wanted to be up close and personal there. Now, in the U.S., one of our best Sage teams from last year was Jason Lee. He's from Silicon Valley, and he started a company called iRetron, which is it's a recycling electronics company online. And Jason now will be competing again this year, probably on April 19. So if you want to meet Jason, he's coming back because a really good Sage business venture can come back for up to 3 years. This venture doesn't end at the end of the semester, where they get their grade and purge what they've learned and have a good time over the summer, right? This is a sustainable type of project-based learning program. There's his website, Internet Recycling Electronics, and he calls himself iRetron. Okay, we talked a little bit about the tournaments. We do have a number of special awards. And how many of you have ever heard of the Millennium Development Goals? Does anyone know about those? In 2001, the United Nations ratified 8 goals that they hoped to achieve by the year 2015. And the overarching goal was to reduce poverty by half. Over 1/2 of the world's population currently lives still on less than $2 a day. And so the overarching goal is to reduce poverty, but in doing so, separate goals included reducing infectious diseases, providing better maternal care for mothers, providing gender equality for countries where equality of women is really a dream still, providing a system where environmental stewardship becomes not just an afterthought, but a pre-thought. These are the Millennium Development Goals. Well, each of our Sage teams that does a social enterprise can enter the MDG competition. And if they've got a social enterprise that specifically addresses one of these Millennium Development Goals, they win extra prize money. Sage World Cup history, we are truly global. The first 3 years, our World Cup was in the U.S., in Kansas City and in San Francisco. But in 2006, I would take Chico State leaders with me who earned the right, because of their leadership skills, to travel with me. And we went to Shanghai, China. The next year, we went to Odessa, Ukraine. After that, we went to Abuja, Nigeria. After that, we went to Brasilia, Brazil. The next year, we went to Cape Town in 2010. In 2011, we went to Niagara Falls and Buffalo. In 2012, San Francisco. This last summer, we went back to Abuja. And then, of course, next year, we are going to Russia. The year after that, by the way, we've already signed a deal. We're going to Seoul, Korea. And the year after that, Shanghai wants us to return, but they're duking it out with Singapore and Dublin. Let me just show you a few photos. Competition's a wonderful thing. And a lot of these teams want to win it all. They win prize money, but more importantly, they win recognition. But the first day, when the teams recover from jet lag, we take them on a cultural outing. And so 2 years ago, we took them to Niagara Falls. And that's all of us on the Maid of the Mist. Okay, and here's a few close-ups. How many of you been to Maid of the Mist tours? And amazing part of the U.S., isn't it? Beautiful. Niagara Falls. And see, I think I'm in there somewhere. Yeah, right there. Closer up, a lot of diversity, a lot of color. Country, okay. The next day, we have a cultural day where all teams are asked to make a presentation or do a performance. And right now, they've had their cultural outing. Now they're bragging about their country or their customs in their school. And they're all now becoming friends. Canada team, there's the girl from Ireland. That's Nigeria. That's a Russia or young Ukrainian. There's a Ukrainian girl. Russian ballet. Irish. China. Nigeria. And there's a great big group photo of us with all the flags. Really, as you can see, it's a very colorful organization. The hard part, though, is getting teams to do this. No, that's not the hard part. The hard part is getting teachers to find a system by which their most creative teens can express this creativity. And it can be maybe a child who's hyperactive or a child who just doesn't like normal school. I think we all know children who've been precocious enough where they're brilliant, but man, they're not doing good in school because they just haven't conformed. In fact, you may be that kind of precocious child, if you recall. Then, competition day. We put students in leagues. And of course, you can, if you're in the front, you can see the leagues are sponsored by the Kenneth Pasternak Foundation, Mitsubishi, the Sierra Health Foundation, the Lewis and Harold Price Foundation. We're getting lots of support globally from private foundations and private donors, as well as from the public corporate world. When they compete, the teams have to do their 13-minute presentation. Judges like you score them. There's a team from, it looks like China. That's the close-up of the Chinese team. There's a team, I think that's a Canadian group of kids. Yep, Canada. There's the judges. And results, again, if you're really interested, I'd be happy to take your business card later and I'd send you this presentation. But we have some really neat results. A lot of these kids, they're too young yet to know whether or not they've started real businesses that have sustained themselves. What I really want is to make sure they go to college. I used to be the advisor to a student group called SIFE on campus, Students in Free Enterprise. But I learned through that organization that college students already have a ticket to the good life. It's the high school students that are in danger of not getting a regular diploma or who have no idea that college is in their horizon. And so my target market is teenagers who may be at risk of not going on to school to get a college diploma, right? So my success is measured mostly in did they go on to get a higher degree because they've seen these Chico State role models who are majoring in entrepreneurship or marketing or management. And so SAGE is cutting across boundaries, and what we do is hard because there's only about 15 SAGE teams competing next April in the US. There are 800 competing in Nigeria in 13 regional competitions. In Singapore, they have 23 high schools. They all have SAGE teams in Singapore. We're going nuts in Shanghai right now. And now I got an email the other day from a young lady in Oakland. She got an email from her cousin in Shanghai and said, we want to start a SAGE team in Oakland at my high school, right? It is really a joy to see us start something from the youth up rather than trying to start it from the top down. Now, a couple quotes here. Here's a quote from a SAGE student in Nigeria. She said, before this, I wanted to become a doctor. Now I want to build hospitals. That's what I call a paradigm shift. All right, so normally, folks, I love talking about this because I love this, but this is my hobby. My day job is teaching financial accounting at the university. But at nights and on weekends, I love to pursue youth entrepreneurship. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you having me today.